What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. Welcome back to the discography from one of my most favourite bands of all time, Fear Factory. I know it has been almost an entire year since I did review their second album, Demanufacture. My apologies, I am back to return to their discography and review their third studio album entitled Obsolete. This album was released on the 28th of July 1998. The limited edition digipack version came out on the 23rd of March 1999. This is, in my opinion, not only just a follow-up album to what many people see as the band's magnum opus, the aforementioned Demanufacture, which came out in 1995. As a lifelong fan of these guys, I grew to absolutely admire this album so much that I would select Obsolete as my favourite Fear Factory album across the entirety of their catalogue of albums. When I was really young, it used to actually be Digimortal. I have loved that album, and obviously I will do my review with my own thoughts on that album. But Obsolete was one of those albums that I have always really liked so much, but the more I was listening to it, the more I was growing to love it. This is definitely one of those albums that was, I guess, a massive grower, besides that I have liked it a lot previously, but this is one of those concept albums where everything just clicked perfectly, and I will have to say it, that this does really show some of the band's best pieces of material as well as their own craft as a band. The entirety of the concept for this album was written by Burton C. Bell, called Conception 5, and it's based in 2076, where machines have taken over mankind in the world. Inspired by different books of The Boys from Brazil, Brave New World, 1984, and 2001 A Space Odyssey. Dino Cazares wrote the album with a 7-string Ibanez guitar that's tuned down to A, and Christian Oldwalbers used a 5-string bass. So this is the first time that Christian did become a full-time bassist for Fear Factory to record his own parts, because on Demanufacture, Dino recorded a lot of Demanufacture, although Christian did record some bass parts for some of the later tracks, like Piss Christ as an example. The album begins with the track Shock. We get to be introduced to the Edge Crusher, the album's main protagonist, who's the leader for humans. He's the only human character in the concept. He takes revenge and rebels against society, making a reflection through the same rebellion of actions from Demanufacture, but this is as a focused, loosely based concept that's as strong. He's entering a world with a mindset to create a, metaphorically speaking, kill switch and the power that's ready to be made. The aggression is very high, and he wants to make a significant change to happen. He is determined to fight and won't be held back by condemnation, having the strength to show himself as the power surge and the insurgent, making the intention to change the system and electrify it with amplified energy. This is an outstanding opening track, and it anticipates the listener with Fear Factory at one of their absolute best tracks ever. I adore this song. It's one of my most favourite top 10 Fear Factory songs of all time. It is stunning through the melody, vocally, and perfectly begins the album with incredibly tight, groovy sections, and it's well-written, constructed material. It is just a classic. Like Demanufacture, this sets everything into place for the excitement and the intriguing diversity for the concept and the musical brilliance. Edge Crusher. This track is about the character fighting and to create destruction against the brutal systems and injustice. The Edge Crusher is going to battle these institutions to create the fair world. He's the non-conformist and subhuman terrorist. His mission to fight them, and showing that with his message of breaking down the Edge Crusher, to bring down and to take apart the structures of power. The instrumentation is chaotic, yet so rhythmic. Christian used the upright bass in the second verse. The riffs were aggressively assaulting, while the delivery of the track remains throughout in its entirety. This track grew to be one of the band's most popular tracks for great reasons. This is as a fantastic track to follow up Shock, Smasher, Devourer. The next character to the concept, and it's a built robot with weaponry. The intensity through these lyrics show the purpose of the robots terminating humanity. It's making the story to become darker as the violence grew and the escalating war began. The experience is overpowering and making humanity to be taken over throughout the chaos. This instrumentation goes through these huge hooks, and Burton's vocals were heavy from his distorted tones. The rhythm is strong with big, dominating riffs and dramatic sounds from the keyboards to make the atmosphere as massive. Raymond Herrera's drumming was chaotic in the bridge section, and the riffs continue their manic controlled speed. Securitron Police State 2000. This is the police system that was created by the Securitron. They arrive in this track, and the power of the surveillance, the control, and the freedom becomes even more weaker than before. The lyrics criticize the authority while they inspect humanity, which affects their reality. The government judges them and control the citizens for their sake of protection. The Edge Crusher has been watched by their monitors, and he descends. They are all over the place, taken over the world, meaning that no other place is completely safe. The privacy was denied and the freedom was restricted. The band were awesome around this track. A lot of dramatic performances and the perfect combinations of the melody through the wonderful clean vocals and the stellar striking sound of the band. I love the duration through the variation of the riffs and the drums. The bass added its crunchy fuzz later on into the track, and the ambience was created to make this track bigger than before. Descent, another single from this album, just like with Shock and Edge Crusher. This is the second part of the album. The Edge Crusher is alone by himself. He hides away from the other two antagonists. He thinks if the mission is completely worth it, and he thinks about his life, hides inside an abandoned building and sleeps. He would then decide to think that his life is worth it and wants to continue doing the mission. This track is a masterpiece and one of my most favourite Fear Factory tracks as well. The intro is memorable, as well as the excellent verse sections to the chorus. The verse sections personally expresses the Edge Crusher's state of emotions, and Burton's vocals were outstanding throughout his vocal range. The rhythm was mesmerizing to listen to, the catchier and less of the technical, complex side of the band. The second half of the album continues with the last scenes, High Tech Hate. This is the most political track, and it's an anti-war protest message addressing the rise of mass destruction from the machinery and the weapons, critiques the leaders of the world who created the weapons, and suggesting that they're not having any courage to face the results of their actions. The lack of courage to address the impending doom that would affect everyone has taken its complete toll. The weapons have been used out of control and taken over humanity by this rate, becoming a threat to society, and it's reaching everything in its downfall. The protesting was addressed from a man taking a stand against them and shouts out his words through a megaphone. It's another vicious track with inventive pieces of instrumentation, builds up the adrenaline like the previous tracks. It's punishing and probably the heaviest song throughout this album, just like with the next track coming up. What a standout performance from Burton, as well as he pours his own distortion and cleans at one of his best recordings. Raymond's drumming really shows his masterful, unique and powerful playing style. It's one of the most underrated Fear Factory tracks in my opinion. Freedom or Fire. The Securitron took over society after the protester raged from his messages as addressed from the last track. He decides to take himself out by committing an act of self-immolation. The freedom was completely ruined and society had no escape. The protester decided to pour gasoline all over himself and lighting a match to burn his body to be free from the pressure and the whole conflict. The chorus's title was his last words basically, freedom or fire. The band were ferocious. Dino's guitar playing became frantic, and it's incredible to hear the raging progression through this style of the songwriting. Again, like the last track, there was a lot of emotion to show the rage that was coming out. Terrific and wicked and intensifying song. The title track, Obsolete. Gary Newman, who's loved by the band, began the track with his spoken word to start the whole thing off. The state of the world was dominated by the machines, and the sense of despair and feeling powerless becomes very consistent. Mankind is struggling to continue its relevance as the world becomes mechanized. All of the individuality was lost, and the machinery, systems, and even the artificial intelligence are growing. The main message is written on the chorus, hence, man is obsolete. Rhys Fulber's ambient sounds with Gary's effect-made voice sets the mood on here. The energy from the band is non-stop and manic. Its chemistry of the musicianship and the complexity is huge, and the way I think of these lyrics, especially on this track and through lots of the rest of the album, it's very prophetic, with so much power, which stands right out, and it is striking at the same time. The second to last track, Resurrection. Out of all of the songs that I know and loved and listened to for many years, this is my number one favourite from the band. The most motivational, upbeat and glorious track they have made. The Edge Crusher witnessed a lot of what happened, from the chaotic massive destruction. He thinks about humanity's disappearance into darkness and the transformation of mechanism. He walks into a church and finds a statue of Jesus Christ. He's reflecting his memories from seeing the statue, and he wants to reach over to touch it. Having no sense of purpose and feeling the pain, the whole experience becomes motivational for the Edge Crusher to come out and wants to continue the mission to save humanity. The beauty of Resurrection is phenomenal. It makes this track to become a magnum opus one from Fear Factory. The cinematic, ambient-driven, drama-made duration of the instrumentation defines itself as a powerful one. Melancholic, yet joyful switch from these separate emotions into one track that shows the band with incredible versatility. There's no other Fear Factory track that I would listen to the most than this one, because I have a lot of admiring memories with this track. There's no other Fear Factory track that I would think about the most than this one. Everything about Fear Factory sums everything right here. Love a ton of their tracks through their own diversity, the intensity, and their tour de force signature influential sound, but Resurrection is the #1 Fear Factory track for me. That's why it is the highlight across this album. The album finishes with Timelessness. It's a much different track to A Therapy for Pain from Demanufacture. Timelessness is entirely moody, atmospheric, slow and resonating. After walking out from the church while doing his mission, the Edge Crusher gets captured by the Securitron to finalize the album. This is where Rhys Fulber's own voice of music comes in to bring the most despairing and emotional feeling. It's beautiful to listen to, as well as that he did construct the string arrangements on here. The interpretation of this song could be about the Edge Crusher being in jail, or some people may think differently, to think that his time in the world comes to an end while the machines took over everything. As he failed, the negativity remained earlier and continues to be negative without a change of anything to improve. The freedom was no more. The Edge Crusher tried but failed. The emotion of the loneliness and inner turmoil came out after what the rest of the album presented visually, artistically and conceptually. 3 of the tracks were very personal to Burton C. Bell, of Descent, Resurrection and Timelessness. His vocals around this track shows some of his best vocals. They were vulnerable, and that's another brilliant word to talk about his vocals on here. Not only that this is the less heavy track for the whole album, but it's a different kind of heavy because of how emotional and despairing it sounds. Timelessness is a wonderful conclusion to finish off Obsolete with one of the best concept albums that I have listened to, like the last album, and it is as mesmerizing, and I just can't put it into words every single time I listen to the entirety. From Shock to Timelessness, this album started everything and finishes everything in a complete form of an outstanding achievement. Overall, Obsolete by Fear Factory is a timeless piece of conceptual art. This album does continue to define as one of the best musical strengths and abilities. It does also show the band at one of their best musically and through their whole progression. Let me know what you guys think of this album in the comments down below. Is this one of your most favourite Fear Factory albums? The production done by the band, as well as with Rhys Fulber and Greg Reilly, have all done incredibly well jobs. Huge textures that made the band's originality as important and as inspiring from then to this very day. I'm going to give Obsolete by Fear Factory a 10 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.